Good morning, everyone. What an inspiring morning we've had. What I would love to really talk about is Tatyana's journey. Our theme is Journeys today, and really build on the inspiring morning that we've had. We heard a lot about the power of technology to build community, and for those who don't know what Nextdoor is, who's on Nextdoor? Woo! Yeah. I literally just moved Nextdoor to here, and Nextdoor is very instrumental in helping me get involved in the marina community, which has been really exciting. Nextdoor's growth has been phenomenal. They are now in 11 countries, near 100% penetration of American cities. That's 260,000 cities, which is really exciting. And Tatyana is Chief Product Officer of it all. I would love to start with something that His Royal Highness said this morning, that technology has a responsibility to upgrade and uplift the moral code of society, and that is a tall order. But as product leaders, there is an incredible impact that you have on billions of people by shaping the parameters of the experience that we have in our devices. And average hours a day, 7-8 hours last time I checked. So an incredible amount of humanity's time is being spent in these products. I would love to talk about and hear from you the ethos and philosophy that guides you in making some of these tough product decisions and how you think about that responsibility.
Absolutely. So at Nextdoor, our purpose is to cultivate a kinder world where everyone has a neighborhood that they can rely on. And that is real. And the way that we kind of make sure that we do that is through several different ways. But the first is really, it's grounded on earning trust every day from all of our constituents. So everyone who is on Nextdoor, who is communicating on Nextdoor, is first verified. And we verify that it's a real person at a real address. And that means that people don't hide behind anonymity. And so making sure that people actually show up as their real selves, right? And so earning trust with each other becomes something that we really, expect of our community. The second thing is that we're really a neighborhood hub for the trusted local exchange of goods, services, and help. So for those of you who are on Nextdoor, you've probably seen posts of someone who's lost their cat or their dog. And one of the wonderful things about being local is that you don't ask somebody who they voted for or what their, personal background is when they've lost their dog. Everyone wants to help. Everyone understands the fundamental humanity of living together in a society, in a location, in a neighborhood. And by creating these sort of utility-based interactions within people, we believe that we can really bring people together. And so we're really leaning into kindness through kind of people, connecting people on the ground in their local neighborhoods, taking those trusted online interactions and translating them into offline interactions and getting people to come together face-to-face in their local communities.
I love that. How has kindness tactically made it into the product from a feature perspective?
Sure, there's a couple of things that we're doing. I'm going to focus on one that we launched last year. It's called the Kindness Reminder. So if you're interacting on Nextdoor and you're kind of posting something, you're replying to something, before you actually are able to, when you hit send, before it actually goes out, into the ether and shows up in the product, we run it through a content classifier. And that content classifier says, does this look like a post or language that has been flagged in the past? If it does, we actually give you a full screen modal, and it says, kind replies make a difference. We'd like you to reconsider what you wrote. And so in the first few months that this has been launched, we found that 50% of people who get this interstitial experience that ask them to reconsider, half of them actually edit what they wrote, and half of them actually don't post what they wrote at all. And our abuse reports have gone down by 25% without hurting our engagement numbers. And so what we're seeing also is that now people are seeing this interstitial a kindness reminder less and less, which means that we're teaching people, right? We're renorming people. We're helping people become better, better participants in our online community. And so we really believe that creating friction in a meaningful way with the purpose of kindness can actually grow engagement, can actually grow interactions on the platform, as opposed to hurting engagement. So we're really questioning a lot of the basic fundamentals, I think, in a lot of tech companies about remove friction, remove friction, remove friction. And we're saying, actually, sometimes purposeful friction can be a really good thing.
Awesome. How many folks saw that meme recently? The same person as Facebook, and then on LinkedIn, and then on Instagram, and then on Tinder. Yeah. So funny how universal the characterization of other social networks has become. We all chuckled and laughed at so many of them. If Nextdoor were characterized, what would the image be about?
Well, I can tell you what my image on Nextdoor would be if I were to put that meme out there. And probably be me walking my dog early in the morning and waving to a neighbor. Maybe going to the local coffee shop, my favorite coffee shop, bumping into a neighbor, recommending the salon down the street, right? It's authenticity. It's letting your hair down. It's not showing up as something that is not authentically you, right? It's actually kind of where you are, where you live. It's being yourself around the people who you just bump into all the time.
Yeah, I love that. A lot of us have read studies linking social media use with depression and all sorts of kind of negative feelings about life. What responsibility do product managers have to really think about, beyond the North Star metrics of MAUs and engagement numbers, the kind of psychological impact that applications and experience in their apps have on their users?
Yeah, I think I think we can talk about our social responsibility, but I think it's also a business responsibility. I think without, kind of understanding not just what are the short-term metrics, but what are the long-term metrics that lead to a successful business, I think product leaders are probably not doing what's right for their business. So at Nextdoor, we have a metrics framework. We have a North Star metrics framework that includes things like product value, which are your normal engagement metrics, your MAUs, your DAUs. But we also have 3 other categories which are just as important. So in addition to product value, we have product love. And there we measure our NPS scores, and we really take our NPS scores very seriously, and we understand that negative tone on the platform, when it shows up, actually brings down NPS scores. So we really invest in that because it is a North Star metric. We also invest in neighborhood vitality. That's one of our North Star metrics as well, and we make sure that abuse reports on the platform are going down. We make sure that the number of meaningful connections we're creating between neighbors who didn't know each other in the past are going up, right? So those are our North Star metrics as well. And the last category is employee engagement. So we want to make sure that we have passionate employees, right, that really feel that they are fulfilling the company purpose day after day, so that we can actually keep continuing to build a great company and a great product for all of our stakeholders and all of our customers. So those sort of 4 clusters, it's a constellation of metrics. It's not just one North Star metrics, but it's product value, product love, neighborhood vitality, and employee passion.
Cool, I love that the 4th bucket is completely internally facing, right? Because these are people who are building what becomes 1, 2, and 3.
But it also is, I think, the cause for making sure that the other 3 buckets or the other 3 categories stay healthy. Because if you don't have really passionate employees, they're not going to kind of tell the truth. They're not going to stay really focused on those 3 other categories.
Yeah. I'd love to hear about the culture at Nextdoor, and tell us a little bit about kind of the culture at the top, how that trickles down, and then specifically the culture of your product team.
So as you can tell, kind of those North Star metrics say a lot about the culture and what we're focused on and the type of people that we hire. We have a very values-focused company culture. And our values kind of cascade throughout the company culture in terms of how we hire people, how we reward people. So in addition to, I said, earn trust every day, we're very customer obsessed. We want to make sure that we're investing in community, that we're thinking big all the time, that we're experimenting and learning quickly. So those are our values that we really hold very, very dear, and that we base our entire company culture around. One of the really amazing things at Nextdoor is the leadership team, the CEO and her direct reports. When we get together in our internal sort of executive meetings, we often start with a moment of gratitude. What are we grateful for? And we talk about the things that we are either personally or professionally grateful for. We have a biggest fan club. We often end the meeting with saying, we have a big green fan, and we pick it up in the meeting, and we kind of thank somebody else, not on our team, right, but somebody in the company on another team that has done something wonderful for us. I see Nick, he was one of my biggest fans one time. And so we have a culture really that is about, we're definitely a fast-growing tech company. So again, thinking big, experimenting and learning quickly, getting product out the door, being very agile. All of those things are very much part of our culture. But the thing that really also distinguishes our culture is our ability to do it with gratitude, with kindness, and with saying thank you.
I love that. Tatyana, I'd love for the audience to hear a little bit about your background and how you came to the product world, a pretty cool story, being a refugee from the former Soviet Union. I'd love for the audience to hear a little bit about that, and then what part of your childhood is with you every single day as a product leader?
Sure. I was struck by Anusha's talk where she said, as someone from the Middle East and a poor immigrant, as I was, there were only 3 options open to her: doctor, lawyer, engineer. Those were pretty much my only 3 options as well. So I think it's a fairly universal poor immigrant thing, right? So I was born in eastern Ukraine, which is now not such a fun place. And my family were a mix of Russians and Jews, and my grandfather had been imprisoned under Stalin several times. And so it was an interesting journey to the United States. My parents were engineers. My grandmother was actually the head engineer of a very large Soviet factory, and she just turned 94, and she's still amazing and awesome and reading 5 newspapers a day. So for me, the idea that, just kind of on the gender side, being a woman was going to hold me back wasn't really there. However, the idea that I needed to kind of strive and I needed to fit into this very narrow band was very much there, because it was like, make money, come to the United States, get a good job, make money, and have a decent life.
And make money.
Yeah, and make money. It was very, very, very make money. And, while my stars, my night sky was human behavior, I was just fascinated by what people were doing, why certain kids on the playground wanted to be popular, what is this about? And so for me, I was fascinated by why people do what they do, and I was constantly thinking about that. And so fortunately, I found economics, which allowed me to kind of do a lot of math, which my parents were like, as long as there's math, it's probably okay. You can still become an engineer. And so do a lot of math, but kind of study human behavior. And I went into advertising after college to sort of understand, again, it was so irrational to me why anybody would care about advertising, so I thought it would be a great job. That took me back to Russia. And I worked in Moscow helping Procter & Gamble launch brands into the Russian market, and it went incredibly unexpectedly, and I understood all of this all these components of culture that really affected and impacted why products were successful, right? So that really opened up my eyes. I got a PhD in anthropology. I went, back to school. I decided to kind of really hone in on what were these different cultural aspects of human behavior and why they affected the decisions that people made, because humans weren't just rational creatures, right? They weren't just rational economic actors. And I was going to become a professor, but then I got a phone call from a company called IDEO. And they said, hey, we're looking for an anthropologist to help us create new innovative products around the world. And because I'd had, a background in, living and working and developing in emerging markets, and, the anthropology and the brand strategy side, I worked at IDEO. And at the time, it was 2007, and all of a sudden this crazy thing called the iPhone came out, right? And so now all these people wanted to create apps and digital experiences, and at IDEO, there was just a lot of work coming in, which was like, who knows how to do this? And I didn't really know how to do it, but I was like, well, if nobody else wants to do it, I'll do it. So I started leading these large global digital products for companies, small companies like Visa and Genentech, and then I worked with the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation on a project that took me to Kenya and Ethiopia and Cambodia, but Kenya was the really critical part because it was when M-Pesa launched. And then all of a sudden, I was on the ground watching mobile money get adopted kind of for the first time in the world. And all of a sudden, because I was there and because I was interested and I was watching this happen and people telling me about how M-Pesa was working, I started to get really, really interested in mobile technology and mobile money. And then Elizabeth Warren came to IDEO, and she asked us to work with the Consumer Financial Protection Bureau to create consumer products to engage the US population. And again, because of this experience, I was sort of asked if I wanted to help lead the project. So of course I said yes. So that was to say that I was just saying yes to every interesting experience, keeping my eyes open about what was happening in the world that was fascinating and emergent and that people were telling me about, right? So I didn't even intend to go to Kenya to talk about M-Pesa, but people were telling me about it. And then Salesforce called, and I led the Lightning Experience redesign there, helped build the IoT cloud, went to Amazon, and then Nextdoor. I mean, Nextdoor is, again, this incredible time to be at Nextdoor because it is the time for the world to really open up to kindness again and to really understand that, there's definitely utility in looking on our phones, but there's so much utility and value in making a connection on the phone and then putting it down and then reconnecting in real life. So that ability to be proximate with people and then make that initial connection online, but then make a meaningful connection offline is something that just really inspires me every day.
I love that. From watching you interact with your team and thinking about your career progression, you seem to be not just effective, but compassionate as a leader. Walk us through your own personal journey to that style of leadership. I think what's fascinating is the qualities that make you an incredible consultant and that make you an incredible academic who gets a PhD, and that make you an effective product leader, to me, are actually three very distinct social skill sets. So what has that journey to leadership been? Because we've got a lot of founder-type CEOs in the audience and folks who are on product teams. You have had impact, whether it was reporting to Andy Jassy at AWS or at Nextdoor, leading large teams that have been effective. How have you developed that skill set? I'd love to hear more about that.
Well, I think there's two really critical components here, and thank you for the compassionate statement. I really hope that I am compassionate. But I think the first one is really curiosity. And again, being really open and curious, and I have an opinion, but my opinion is very flexible in terms of what comes my way. And so being really, really curious about what the world has to offer and what everybody around me has to offer, whether I'm talking to, a villager in Ethiopia, or whether I lived with a herder family in Mongolia, or whether I'm talking to the CEO of AWS, right? To me, it's all just people, and I have something to learn. So I think the first thing is really kind of openness and curiosity. And the second thing is being able to take feedback. And it is very, very hard, I think, for people as they're kind of climbing the ladder, and myself included, to not become defensive. But the best thing I ever learned from a coach was when somebody gives you feedback that is really hard to hear, and you start to get defensive, you just say thank you. Just say thank you for the feedback, because you just can't respond well in the moment. You just have to say thank you for the feedback, and then you'll figure out how to respond later. And, I do think that the primary sort of technical skill that I have has been consistent across my journey, which is just wanting to understand why people do what they do. The hardest problems in technology today are not technology problems. They're all people problems. They're about, as a tech leader, my job is all about finding the right people to build products for other people that they will love. That's it. That's my whole job. My whole job is all about people, even though I run a technology team. And I think that technical skill, and it is a technical skill because we have to learn it and refine it and hone it, and we have to be very conscious about it, that skill is consistent across all of those roles.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Tatyana. This has been a pleasure. Thank you so
you.
much for joining us.